Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence here today. We're so happy to see all of you. My name is Afrika Mills, and I'm an instructional coach with BetterLesson. And, thank you. And Monica, you want to?
And I'm Monica Washington, also an instructional coach for BetterLesson and 2014 Texas State Teacher of the Year.
Woo! Awesome.
All right, and also, yes, just to add to what Afrika just said about honoring you with your time. We know it's the last session and flights are coming, so thank you just for being here.
Absolutely. So we just want to start out with our objectives. We want you all to have an opportunity to enjoy several of the following things. We want you to gain strategies for addressing resistance you may face when trying to diversify the reading curriculum. We know that although it's something that's become more prevalent to be discussed in educational circles around making sure that the reading that we engage students with is diverse, we know, especially I think as we get to the older grades, there's a canon that exists, and it's kind of hard to pierce into that and to make sure that there's representation of lots of different perspectives. And so we want to make sure you have strategies for addressing resistance you may face. We also want to have you have the opportunity to collaborate with one another, to think about having the opportunity to diversify texts that would come to mind. And then our final objective would be to make sure that you're able to leave with a clear process that you can use either in your classroom or in your school, because we know not everyone is in the classroom or still in the classroom, to diversify your reading list.
And I wanted to just add one quick thing, just acknowledging the elephant in the room, too, with time. We typically do this session in 90 minutes. So there are some features that we're going to have to cut. So bear with us when we seem to be hurrying. It's because of the time. And I think every presenter has faced that, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So we wanted to just start by thinking about, not us telling you why this is important, but inviting students into the room, right? So we talked to a number of students just to get their input on why they don't like to read, why they don't love to read, why they would prefer to play video games or something else instead of picking up a book. And what we'd like for you to do is we'll put a quote up that we got from one of those students. Then we would like you to put on your teacher hat and decode that. So what is that saying to us as teachers? So we'll just, let you shout some things out at us. So the very first thing is from a middle school student who said, people in the books, they just do stuff that I don't do. So with your teacher hat, right? Teacher ears, what do you hear that student saying? Books are outdated. They're not connected to it, right? The books are outdated. I'm not connected to that. So some students avoid reading because they can't relate to the lives of the people that they're reading about, their characters within the book. And so they would much rather do something else. Here's another from a high school student who said, even if it is a book with people of color, it's normally sad and depressing. Everybody is a slave. They're all poor, right? I don't want to read that, right? So what do you hear with your teacher ears with that? Say it again. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
That
connection, that connected piece, right? I need something to show me who I am. And so and sometimes those books that we do assign with people of color, they're not uplifting books. They are books that, yes, those things happened in history, and we have to read those things, but sometimes they're just not uplifting, and kids are like, man, you just beat me down with the books, all the time. Why? Another. So mostly I read a little bit when we get reading points for prizes, but if we don't get reading points, I can just play on the iPad. Right? Again, connection. I haven't found a book that connects with me. Or that's fun, right? And also, I hear that sometimes we have these little point systems. If you just read this, you get this many points. And if you read this, so when we set up sometimes these reward systems, maybe we're minimizing the importance of just reading for fun, reading for connection, reading for, wow, it's just fun to read. We turn it into something else. And every student at every grade level said, it's just so boring. Again, going back to what is that? Lack of connection, right? So, and again, if you think about the things that you said about the other quotes, so students want books that empower them, that they relate to, that are just great books to read just because they're great books to read.
Yes.
Okay? So, thank you for that. And I don't know why the clicker doesn't like me. All right. So, what I think and what we think is that we have, our curriculum tells students a lot, right? It tells students what's important. It tells them who is important. So we really have to think about what we're doing with our curriculum, because our curriculum is sending messages. Even when we're not talking, whatever we put in front of our students, that curriculum is talking. Yes. Right? And so we believe it is so important that the things that we read paint a full and complete picture for our students. So when we diversify the canon, we are going beyond these little snapshots in history, these little snapshots, but we're showing them, look at this, look at all these beautiful pictures, right? Look at the complete story. So I'll have this back to Afrika.
All right. So just a show of hands of everyone in the room who's heard about the concept of windows and mirrors. All right. So some of you have, and for those of you who have not yet, it's one of, I think, our most favorite frames of reference, because basically what it means is that whenever we're thinking about the learning environment that we create for our students, that every student has to have two things. They have to have the opportunity to gaze through windows to learn about the experiences and the interests and the histories of other people, of people who are different from themselves, right? I think generally speaking, we do that okay, depending on our student population, right? So I'll put a little asterisk there. But the mirrors piece is that we're supposed to also create an environment where students have the opportunity to see themselves mirrored back. So they need to be able to see not only people who look like them, but people who like to do the things that they like to do. And I think sometimes we make the mistake of like, oh, it's like, yes, when we think about like multicultural celebrations, a lot of times we're like, oh, let's bring the food in. Food is awesome. I'm not trying to hate on food, because I'm like, I love food too, right? So I love to really experience other cultures and other the food that other people eat, but it's so much deeper and richer than that, and we're complex as individuals, and so we need to be able to go beyond just the surface things that we tend to think about others, to make sure that every student has the opportunity to see themselves mirrored back in the curriculum. So the things that we choose to have them read, the things that we choose to have them learning about, should be represented in the curriculum. So I want to take some time to talk a little bit about how we can integrate in, because like Monica was talking about, I think sometimes people make the mistake of thinking that when we say we think that the curriculum needs to be diversified, or that the canon should be diversified, it means taking Shakespeare and eliminating, Shakespeare, or taking anything that used to be taught prior and then saying that we don't want to teach it anymore. And that's not what we're saying. We're saying that it should not be taught to the exclusion of other voices and other perspectives. And so I really enjoy the work of Alfred Tatum. I don't know if any of you have heard of his work, but I love the work that he does. I mean, you see the books he featured here around like teaching reading to Black adolescent males and things of that nature. But basically, he talks about the framework of really engaging students in essential questions, right? And so you can take pretty much any text and then think about it thematically, about what's being addressed in the text. So, for example, this book, Monster, it's not necessarily the book Monster. It's not Walter Dean Myers' Monster. It's actually a book about the autobiography of an LA gang member. And so basically what he did is like pulled a quote out of that book. So the quote is actually from Malcolm X. "Out of frustration and hopelessness, our young people have reached the point of no return. We no longer endorse patience or turning the other cheek." So the example could be taking a quote like that and then asking the essential question, does a person become a quote-unquote monster by choice, or are they forced into becoming a monster? So it's about really taking essential questions from the text that we read and expanding it and having a richer, larger discussion about that. And when we think about giving students those types of opportunities, there's critical thinking and connection that's available there when we approach it that way. Another example is Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, Self-Reliance. the quote is, "Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist." And then the essential question would be, is there more value in conformity or nonconformity? Can individuals be truly self-reliant in our society today? So this is a traditional canonical work, right? This is from Emerson. So we're not saying to take and get rid of that, but we're trying to see how can we connect it in a relevant way to our students, the things we tend to read with our students. Well, actually, now this is the part that's probably like breaks our hearts in preparing for this session, because we created a gallery walk, and I think, is this coming off? I don't know if it's off of me.
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. I'm like, my hair is all like twisted up and thing. So basically, we created a gallery walk or a library tour. We wanted to show you lots of different ways that you could bring different books into your instruction to diversify it. So we've had to truncate it. But if you sign up in the sign-in sheets that are on the tables, we will send you the library that has Right. So thank you. Sorry, technical difficulties. Thank you. All right. So I loved creating this slide. I mean, because when I think about I didn't talk a bit about my teaching history before I became an instructional coach, but I used to teach in 4th and 5th grade, and then I was also a literacy coach for a while. And so this first slide is around like thinking about for like in our elementary classrooms, and the asterisk that I'll put here is that when I say elementary, it does not mean these books cannot be used with older students, because I believe that middle and high school students can greatly benefit from picture books as well. But typically speaking, where you'll see these types of books would be at the elementary level. And what I love about this positive identity development, these examples, is that what Monica said earlier is that, when we think about the students who will tend to read about people of color, it usually has to do with struggle and oppression, right? And so I'm like, well, what about a little black boy like Not Norman just having a goldfish, right? Like he just do regular kid things, right? And then just really, one of the books too in the bottom left-hand side, I don't know if you've read that book, Something Beautiful, before, but it's about a little girl living in a community where there are challenges, and she's like, where's my something beautiful? And she has the chance to explore all the beauty that does exist in her community, because a community does not have to be free of trouble for it to have beauty in it, right? So there's so many examples that we can infuse into our classrooms by using these types of books. We also want to look at how we teach history. I think a lot of times too, like when we think about, especially when we think about like the month of January, okay, we're going to talk about Martin Luther King. Okay, it's going to be, if it's February, then we're going to talk about Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King again, and then Rosa Parks, and then we're good, right? Like that's usually what tends to happen. But I think that what's really important is to make sure we're, even when we do talk about history of people who are usually from marginalized groups, that we start to explore the things that are not typically explored. So I'll just pull one example, like the story of Henry Box Brown. I don't know if you've ever heard his story before, but this book here, this on the upper left-hand side by Kadir Nelson, is one of the most beautiful illustrators I've ever seen. But Henry Box Brown was someone who mailed himself out of enslavement. And I cannot even imagine what that must have been like. But that's, you can get books that kind of talk about the stories that are not usually explored, Japanese internment or the Great Migration. So we have lots of opportunities to be able to expand what we share with our students. For the middle and high school groups or students, we have lots of opportunities to be able to explore with them, like whether it be the histories of folks. Not to say we can't ever talk about struggle. So thinking about like Angie Thomas's The Hate You Give is a book where there is struggle, but it's really, it's something that's not always explored within the topics that we read about, right? Or we can think about like just being able to read about Miles Morales, who is a Black and Latino Spider-Man, right? And then, or the Black Panther, or Bruce Lee. Like we can think about making sure that we're teaching our students and giving them opportunities to enjoy learning about all different types of people. And then this one I'll tell you, really, this is one of my favorite examples. Right. Okay, so I went to a literacy workshop years ago where we were talking about like how do we use model, or mentor texts to be able to teach literacy skills, right? So there's this book. Raise your hand if you've ever read this book before. Shortcut? Okay, so you guys already know, right? And I won't give it away for those of you who haven't read it yet because it's a really good book. But what I love about this book is it's a book about a group of Black kids who are just doing kid stuff, right? They're going to visit Big Mama's house. And they're just like all kids do, they go out and they explore, and they get themselves into a little trouble. I'll just leave it at that. But the thing that's really great about this story is that it's not talking about, I mean, there's a struggle going on, but it's like a kid struggle. It's not like, thinking about like police brutality necessarily or enslavement or civil rights. And so you have an opportunity to teach students to do things like making and confirming predictions, defining and exploring onomatopoeia as a literary device, discussing foreshadowing, and having examples of children of color just being children. And so this is a really great example, I think, of how we can teach literary skills while making sure that our options are more diverse. I'm actually going to pass this back over to Monica now.
Yeah, thank you. And then there isn't a slide that says this, but also when we think about using literature in different ways, think about taking some elementary books and putting them in front of your high schoolers.
Yes.
Oh, they love it. They try to act like they don't, but they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had so many more slides, but they'll be in the resources. So we're talking about diversifying the curriculum. We have a canon. We go in our school. They've already bought like 10,000 boxes of this book, and we teach this book every year. And we work with people who, let's be honest, like it's not always easy to change things, especially when they've already been done or always been done in that particular way. So just think about, what do we do as educators when we are either district level, school level, team level? What do we do when we have colleagues who say, well, what we've always done is working just fine. We've always done it this way. So how can we deal with reluctance? And sometimes it's just like outright resistance, like, no, we're not changing. This is what we're doing. I don't want to start over. I have all my lessons set for the next forever years. So how can we persuade them that this is important, that this is what we need to do? We want to give you just a few minutes, maybe, I don't know, we normally give more than this, but 2 minutes maybe?
Yeah.
So let's take about 2 minutes at your tables to talk. So what do you do when you walk amongst that resistance? District, school, team, whatever. What do you do? How do you persuade those people? So thank you for that. What are some things that you heard? How do we deal with that resistance? Sometimes it's really sad when it's the librarian. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but I've worked in a school where like the librarian was like, no, this is what we are doing and not that. So what do you do? How do you deal with that? Can you throw out some ideas that you heard at your tables?
Use your outside voice. Yes. You don't have an inside voice. Okay, that works for us.
So tied to the standards,
Yep.
show how thematically it still fits with what you're doing.
Yes.
So, yeah, and it doesn't take but a second. Yeah, thank you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A book.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
Right.
I love it. Start
Yeah.
small. You don't
Right.
have to burn all the books, right? Start with one title. One title could do a
Yes.
lot. Dorita?
Yes.
Yes.
Student voice.
Yes. Love it. So allowing students to have that voice and the choice and letting them bring in. And then the interest, back to the connection piece, right? Good. That's all one hand. Yes, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Right, absolutely. And you can easily like make not a doodle poll, but any type of little Google form survey just to find out from kids like what they want to read, right? So love it. Thank you guys so much. So basically, it doesn't matter where you are in terms of your position in your district or your state. You know that teachers find themselves in one of these places. And you as a principal may find yourself in one of these places. As a district person, sometimes the state says this, so you find yourself in one of these places. So we just want to know, like, some of us have no freedom at all. You walk in and they say, that's it right there. Go make some magic happen. Some of us have complete freedom. You're in a school or a district and they say, you are the expert. Go do your thing. Tell us what to order. And then a lot of us find ourselves somewhere in the middle. And I think before we can do any type of work in terms of diversifying any canon, we have to figure out, where am I standing, right? So where am I on that continuum? So just to sort of gauge the room really quickly, if you find yourself with very little freedom, no freedom to change anything, would you raise your hand and say, I'm in a box? Right now. 1, 2, 3. 2 people? Yeah. All right. In a box. Anybody have complete freedom? Like, you're, wow, this is so good. Yes, this is awesome. This is really great. And then how many of us are sort of in the middle? Like, they're like, you still have to teach this, but you can maybe have one choice. Right? Okay. Yeah. So cool. So that is so important to figure out and talk with your teams about, hey guys, where are we, right? In our school, where are we on our team? What kind of power do we have? And so I want to go back to that idea again of painting the complete picture, right? Because it does not matter where you find yourself on that Venn diagram, you have some power. You have a lot of power, actually, to still paint that complete picture. And so I wanted to just sort of drop you in my classroom with something that is in the canon for 11th grade literature. Any high school English people? Yes. So The Great Gatsby is on the list. So just sort of run you through how I would walk through sort of in my own planning, creating that complete picture and trying to set a complete table for my students. I can't change that book. I cannot go and say, hey, we're not teaching it anymore, because first of all, we've already spent a whole bunch of money, as you said. We've already allocated the funds. We do not have the money to sort of, teach this year, and now we're going to buy a whole set of 430-something 11th graders. No, you're not going to rebuy every year. So I have to keep teaching that. And so I think about my idea of creating the complete picture, and I say, first of all, what is it that I'm telling my students and teaching my students with The Great Gatsby? What might they glean from it? Even if I don't say anything to them. So what might they glean? They may glean that everybody in the 1920s, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Everybody was rich. There were no black people.
Yes.
Like right. No black people. And everybody was, everybody's white. There's a party going on all the time. And that, all great writers are pretty much the white guys. That's what I'm saying. That's what I meant by literature tells us what's important and who's important. That's what that book might say to my students, even if I don't say anything. I may not say any of that. So then I have to think, now, what's missing from that is that. Now, what can I put with The Great Gatsby? If I can't throw it out, right. So I have to teach it, what can I put alongside it or around it to create that big picture for my students? The complete picture. And so as a teacher, I'm thinking, okay, they're getting a snapshot. Now let me get some broad strokes. What else can I put? So then I think, okay, poetry. Like, you don't have to buy that. You can Google it, right? So I think, Langston Hughes, what else is happening in the 1920s, the Harlem Renaissance? Yes, that's another side that's not being told by that book that I'm assigned to teach. Zora Neale Hurston, little bitty folk tales that you can look up, short stories. Then I can look up magazine articles, podcasts, all kinds of things that are there and available for free that will help me create that big picture that The Great Gatsby may not present. And I love the book. but it doesn't teach my students everything. And they're not going to go and do that homework to fill in the gaps that I'm not filling in for them, right? So, and it's sort of become a thing for me to do this. So I guess I'll do it.
I think you should do it.
It's become a thing. So I mentioned rich, white, everybody has money. So if I think about my favorite poet, Langston Hughes, and I go, okay, what can I pull from that could counter or create the other side of that? And I always go to Ballad of the Landlord by Langston Hughes. And it goes, landlord, landlord, this roof has sprung a leak. Don't you remember I told you about it way last week? Landlord, landlord, these steps is broken down. When you come up yourself, it's a wonder you don't fall down. $10 you say I owe you? $10 you say it's due? Well, that's $10 more than I'll pay you till you fix this place up new. What? You're going to get eviction orders? You're going to cut off my heat? You're going to take my furniture and throw it in the street? You're talking high and mighty. Talk on till you get through. You ain't going to be able to say a word if I land my fist on you. Police, police, come and get this man. He's trying to ruin the government and overturn the land. Coppers whistle, patrol bell, arrest, precinct station, iron cell, headlines in press. Man threatens landlord. Tenants held no bail. Judge gives Negro 90 days in county jail. So, now, can you think?
Can I just say, just to give love to Mon, I mean, I love it anyway, just to hear her being able to to talk, just to share that poem. But the other piece that I love about that too is that it gives a connection to current events, right? So this is something that came from the 1920s, but it absolutely is relevant to the things that are happening today.
Absolutely. Right? And you can have the whole discussion with him about socioeconomics. Yeah. When, this book is saying, rich, ooh, all this, the dancing, the flappers and all of this and the diamonds and the pearls. But then there are people at the same time who are being arrested and all they're doing is saying, dude, fix up this place. Right. You're taking my hard-earned money and you're not doing anything about the place that I live in. Right? Imagine what you can do. Not a complete picture, but that's another piece of that puzzle, right? But I could put so much other stuff with that too. Definitely. So, thank you for listening. So what we would normally do at this time would be to put you guys in groups and sort of take a text and do what I just did. But because we don't have the time, we're going to do just a whole group brainstorm. You guys don't mind doing that. So what we were thinking about doing is having you guys sort of decide what grade level we would like to work with, because we can do elementary, middle, high, it doesn't matter. But we want to go through that process of thinking about what is a text in your setting that's always taught, right? And I made a little worksheet for you to sort of think through that. So what is a text that's typically taught? Now, what is it that text is telling my students? What is that text not showing or not telling my students? Now, what can I use that's going to fill in those gaps, right? Whether it's a short story, a song, an article, pictures, Skype. Did you say Skype? Yeah, absolutely. So how much time do we have?
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Oh, it's so much better when we have a whole 90 minutes. But okay, thank you guys for engaging with us. But let's see. How do we pick grade level? How many of you would like to do something elementary? Elementary? Couple people? How many middle school people level 1 and 2? And then high school?
Probably high.
High school? Okay. Is there a text? Animal Farm. Animal Farm. Okay. So let's work it out. Okay. So we're going to take.
Right. Because even if you were elementary or middle, if you read Animal Farm in your schooling, which you probably did, or you maybe had a chance to, you can kind of come from that experience. well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's about the process, right? If you go back to what Africa mentioned earlier with our objectives, our objective, our main one is for you to leave with the process that maybe you can sit down with your POC or your team and say, hey guys, let's go through this process together. Let's pick a book and let's talk about creating a bigger picture. All right. So we'll use Animal Farm as our example. And what we like for you to do is just again, take 2 minutes at your table and think about what is it that Animal Farm is teaching, what is it saying, and what's being perhaps left out, if anything. So we'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll try to make the broad strokes together. So 2 minutes. Okay. So let's come back together and talk through what we were able to do, and maybe on the fly, the pieces we didn't get to, we can get to them as a group. It is super hard to do this in 45 minutes. Okay, so we chose Animal Farm as our novel. And what did you come up with in your groups about what themes or concepts kids are going to pull from that, or that we want them to pull from that? So what's coming out of Animal Farm already by itself, standalone book? Yes, corruption, using power in the wrong way, misuse of authority. Awesome. Good. Yes. The erosion of civil rights. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh, I could go all in right field on that really fast, but I won't. Okay, let's jump into limitations. Is there anything that you think when you think of Animal Farm, if that were the only thing you had, what perhaps is being left out? You can think about, where you are right now in 2018 or anything else. What's a limitation of that as a standalone book? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so if you didn't hear her, she said that it's they may feel historically out of touch with the book itself,
they don't
right?
understand the background.
Background knowledge of the book. Any other limitations that you all came up with? If that's the only thing, what's left out? Yes. The presence of women. Yes.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. I know him.
That's Africa's husband. Shout out. Yeah. We have the husband corner back there. So awesome. And we could have a bigger discussion on that and the limitations. But ideas about what you could bring in to paint your complete picture. What could you put alongside it? Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Pedagogy.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. Yes.
Been Marianne, right?
Right.
I know,
we
right?
Need to. That's beautiful. Did I see a hand back there? No. Yes. Over here. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Current events of the newspaper. There you go.
I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I love Zella. Right, I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's helping.
Yeah.
Right? I was gonna
Say it one more time. Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I forget who mentioned it earlier in the conference, but someone was talking about like bringing in primary source documents and being able to say like, to be able to bring and make some of these concepts, deepen them for the students. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
So do you see how we just took something that is very much a part of the American literary canon and we just enriched it with current events, with bringing in women's voices, so many different ways we can do that, and then bringing in the background knowledge, and then it's not just the book and what's in the book, because the book isn't powerful enough to paint that complete picture.
And I was going to say too, like in a lot of ways, when we're thinking about that our instruction is standards based. If what you're doing is standards aligned and you're still getting pushback, then it could help us have some of those difficult conversations that we were hearing about yesterday. Because what really is happening then, if I'm telling you that I'm addressing these standards and I have this evidence here in front of me, but there's still pushback, and we're not talking about replacing, like I understand we did the adoption and all that stuff, but if we are supplementing and there's still pushback, then there's something else that's happening that we need to have a larger conversation about.
Because why don't you want to supplement?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So, quick debrief. So after just doing that activity where you thought about a book that maybe you haven't read since high school, maybe you don't teach it, it's not your grade level, or maybe you do teach it, is there something that comes to mind for you as an educator or as an educational leader around how you could use this process in your own planning? Anything that comes to mind, or any questions? No, you're fine.
No, Dorena, go ahead. No. Good. Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Can I? Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. And can I say, one thing, and you'll see our information on the next slide, but one of the things that we really take very seriously is that we know, aside from the fact that we only had a certain amount of time with you all, is that we know that this work it takes place over time, and you will get our contact information. And if you need support or you need people in your corner or ideas, you're going to get this is self-promoting, but you're going to get a fabulous resource library from us that we've taken a lot of time to cultivate for all of you. And if you ever need anything, just email us. And we'll be right there to support you.
We've already, 3 teachers from a previous session, they got to sit through the whole 90 minutes, and they've already reached out, and we've helped them. And then there's one that we're going to help when we get back from that we met in Boston, I think, or Kansas City. But she wants to use some rap songs with her literature that's very fixed, and we're going to help her create those lessons. So when we say that, we mean that.
We mean it seriously, legitimately.
But thank you guys so much. We didn't know whether or not we would have, this is our teacher hope. I just want to show this slide. So we were like, what if we have extra time? We're going to put some more slides in there. But we had some other slides in there just in case we got there, but I don't think we did.
Can we just show it to them real quick? Y'all mind if we show it to you real quick?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, show it to you real quick. All right, real quick. All right, so this one, I'm going to have to let you tell a story. You want to tell a story or when we go to the next slide?
You can go to the next one. It was a good story, though.
Monica will tell you. If you contact Monica, she will tell you about that story. But this one, I just want to tell you quickly, goes back to the work of Alfred Tatum, where he talks about us identifying our own textual lineages and helping our students to develop theirs as well. And so this is just an example, like when I had to think about what book was really transformative for me. It's Lerone Bennett Jr.'s Before the Mayflower, because you see my name, I'm Afrika, Faney. My parents were borderline Black Panthers. they were like, you're always going to know your people and your heritage and things like that. So this book, the first book that you see is the one that was in my household. So I saw it, but I was a little kid. I didn't really get it, right? But then when I was in 10th grade, my African-American history teacher used the text. We read that whole book together. It's a very thick book. But it was very transformative because it starts with African-American history and African history prior to enslavement, because everything that I was seeing in school, it was as if black people only came to be when enslavement began. And so then the last book is with the version that you'll see that's current. But these are some of the examples that you can go through yourself to identify your own, and then have your students start to develop their own as well by asking them these questions. The other one, too, is, like Monica talked a little bit about, too, like hip-hop poetry and the classics. It takes hip-hop lyrics and it marries it with some of the traditional canonical texts. And so that we were able to learn about all of these literary devices and strategies in concert with, hip-hop and the classics. And then if you don't know about vocabulary, oh my gosh, I love vocabulary. It's just an amazing, amazing resource where it's like legit hip-hop. Like, it's not corny hip-hop. It's like the real stuff. And it's actually, where you're able to have the opportunity to learn, for students to learn in a way that's really relevant. I used to use it with the weekend rap, where the students were learning about current events at the end of the week through hip-hop. It was really powerful, and a lot of supportive resources along with the music videos. And then this one really quickly is like using, like a lot of times people are like, oh, but we got to get kids ready for the test. If you use text in a format where they're being exposed to like multiple choice questioning and things like that with relevant text, then you can accomplish the same thing with relevant text. So it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. So we wanted to show you those last couple of slides. And like I said, if you want to have any more information from us, definitely, we have monica.washington@betterlesson.com and africa.mills. But if you just do monica@betterlesson.com and africa@betterlesson.com, you'll be able to get through to it. Okay? And thank you all for your time.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all for your time. Yay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback.